second book is coming out too. It will
Is
be
that right?
Elsevier, yeah. It will be published by, Elsevier. The most of our books, as you see behind my A's
Uh-huh.
background is so.
Wow.
So these books are all by Elsevier. All the top cardiology, nephrology, all these books are by Elsevier.
Yeah, they
So
are.
yeah, we are. My next book on yoga for cardio. It's already there out in Amazon, but the actual book has not come out. It's coming out now. So
So it's
Gauri,
already on Amazon. Is it on Kindle? Because
no, it's on Amazon, but the book hasn't come out. They have just given the
okay.
picture and everything. It's called cardiovascular yoga for cardiovascular disease and cardiac rehabilitation.
So for cardiac rehabilitation. Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest problem, right? In this country,
Yeah.
having
It's already on
realized.
Amazon. Is it?
Yeah, it is on both. This book is also on Amazon. This Gauri actually has a chapter in this book. She remains quiet. She doesn't say what she. So this book is already
Oh
in
my God.
the market. This is, but I'm not trying to sell you my book. This book is very costly, so I'm not trying to sell you my book because these books are not meant so that I can be rich. These books are meant so that the modern medicine people understand the science of the science that is coming from India in yoga. That is the basic intention. Like this book is written by 75 authors from all over the world, including from Harvard, Emory, and they're all allopathic doctors. So you can understand how powerful statement they make when you have top allopathic doctors writing for holistic medicine. And so the second book, so this is already out. The second book is not out, but they have the picture of the book and everything in Amazon. If you just type my name in Amazon, you should be getting it. And we are doing a book for the common man, how to use 30-day yoga protocol to prevent heart disease or to cure heart disease. And that's also extensively scientifically researched so that we don't want to sell voodoo. We want to
Yeah.
sell science. Yoga cannot be voodoo. Like for 10,000 years, you cannot be fooling people.
Yeah.
I think we can start the meeting now. We have all the panelists. Hello, Chandni. How are you? You are on mute, Chandni. You are on mute, Chandni. Can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
All righty. Okay. And welcome to the Sambasha series by American Association of Ayurvedic Professionals. So today, in honor of International Yoga Day, we celebrate the profound union of mind, body, and spirit through ancient yoga. And we are bringing yoga for wellness, alleviate your health every day. As we know that the Bhagavad Gita beautifully says that yoga is the journey of the self, through the self, to the self. So yoga is not just a physical exercise, but also a way of life that can help individuals achieve a balance between the body, mind, and soul. So yoga actually is a journey of self-discovery that can lead to personal growth, inner peace, and sense of purpose. With this, I'm delighted to welcome our esteemed panelists today. Namaskar, everybody. So first, I would like to welcome Dr. Basu. Dr. Basu is a distinguished cardiologist specializing in the cutting-edge field of interventional cardiac electrophysiology. His unique role involves performing intricate ablation of atrial fibrillations and ventricular tachycardia, showcasing his exceptional skills and knowledge in the subspecialty. He's a staff cardio-electrophysiologist and the present director of cardiovascular research at the Memphis Veteran Medical Center in Memphis. He's also an adjunct professor at the School of Public Health, University of Memphis, Tennessee, USA. Dr. Ray is not only a medical practitioner, but also a visionary leader. He's the founder and president of American Academy of Yoga and Medicine, a pioneering organization scientifically validating yoga as an integrative medicine. His significant contribution include being the program director of the world's first conference on the role of Meditation in Cardiovascular Disease, and serving as the editor-in-chief of the world's first reference book on the principle and practice of yoga in cardiovascular diseases. Welcome, Dr. Basu. Our next panelist is Dr. Nick Shroff. Dr. Shroff is a urologist, cancer surgeon, Yoga Alliance teacher, and healthcare consultant. He practiced conventional Western allopathic medicines for over 4 decades, integrating his skills with modern holistic therapy. His technical skills and compassion guided him to facilitate healing at a deeper level. Dr. Shroff leads by example, imparting knowledge received from reverse spiritual masters. He has voluntarily conducted numerous yoga classes for yoga practitioners, seniors, cancer patients for several decades. He teaches integrated medical knowledge that combine yoga and holistic living, affirming their validation by modern sciences. Dr. Shroff is the president of American Prostate Cancer Foundation, and he stands out as a social innovator utilizing his education, experience, leadership skills, especially for the elderly and underserved population in low socioeconomic communities. Welcome, Dr. Shroff.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Chandni, who is a board-certified Ayurveda practitioner, CEO and founder of Chandni Organics. She specializes in human optimization, longevity, and women's health. She is the CEO and founder of Chandni Organics, a company dedicated to developing, promoting, and selling whole health and wellness products. With over 20 years of experience, she has honored expertise in brand development, product formulation, and the manufacturing of organic goods. Her career spans various facets of the health, lifestyle, and sustainability sectors. She has owned and published notable yoga magazines, including Common Ground in San Francisco, where she led publishing team and managed distribution. She also co-owned and managed Golden Bridge in the Los Angeles, one of the largest yoga studio in the country. Her experience extends to event management, organizing one of the India's largest women's festival, attracting over 600 global attendees. And she has also co-founded the Chandni Scholarship Fund, a non-profit organization that offers young adults for underserved community the opportunity to travel to India and experience mindfulness and cultural diversity. She holds a bachelor degree in architect and environmental design from UC Berkeley. Welcome all, and thank you all for joining us. So we'll start with our first discussion with Dr. Basu, because he has a little bit of time constraint. So Dr. Basu, looking at your bio and so many good things you are doing with the yoga with your patients, how do you see the yoga contribute towards the cardiovascular health, particularly in lowering blood pressure, reducing stress, and improving heart rate variability?
So I think yoga is the only thing to do, because as you know very well, drugs help, but drugs come with certain adverse effects. So we have to remember the basic understanding that a drug is a poison. It is only a drug for you because the benefit is little more than the problems or the adverse effects. So the cause of hypertension now we know is things like systemic stress. So your brain gets stressed for your normal existence. And when your brain gets stressed, it releases a bunch of chemicals that causes your heart to go fast, decreases heart rate variability, increases your blood pressure. These are called sympathetic discharges from the brain and other places in the body. And that sympathetic discharge results in a large number of diseases, whether it is poor insulin control, that is insulin called diabetes, whether it is high blood pressure called hypertension, and of course, decrease in HRV. All these are controlled by one single thing. The unfortunate part is that till today, despite there being such great drugs, there is not even a single drug that can bring down stress. The only way you can bring down stress is by the practice of yoga. Now, I have to give a caveat here. Unfortunately, most American think doing asanas is yoga. Asana is just 5 to 10% of yoga. Yoga has got 7 different wings. The eighth wing is actually not a thing that you perform. It is a state that you reach. So the different stages of yoga all have roles, whether it is yama, whether it's niyama, whether it is asana, whether it's pranayama, whether it is dharana, dhyana. These are all the 7 stages and 7 different practices that amalgamate together to give you the best results. And then it reaches the 8th stage, which is basically a different paradigm of existence or higher level of consciousness. So, in short, there is no drug that can bring down stress. There is no drug that can systematically damage your brain so that by the age 80, 85, as you know, 35% of our population languish in nursing homes. They do not know who their son is, who their daughter is, where they live because of dementia. And of course, there are 300,000 people in America dying every year by what is known as sudden cardiac death. 70% of them die before you can dial 911 and call an ambulance to your home to take you to the hospital. So all these are because of stress. And as you know, there are 2 wars going on. Thousands have lost their jobs in the IT field. The world, unfortunately, is not in one of its best times. And all these causes stress. We just had an epidemic that killed a few million. So in short, every aspect of non-communicable disease, whether it's hypertension, whether it is diabetes, yoga is the answer for chronic prevention. And if you already have had the disease, you can prevent further attack. Medicine is just a stay put so that you can control, you can change your lifestyle, you can change your diet, get into a yoga practice. But medicine is not meant to cure any one of these.
Thank you, sir. Very well said that medicine is not only tool to address the health conditions. My question to you is, yes, yoga is the best part. Ayurveda is the best part. Holistic medicine is good. But what are the key challenges and you come across when there is a notion that only medicine can cure certain diseases and yoga is just for the exercise? Do you feel that how you convince your patients when it comes to the traditional approaches such as yoga?
So I see there is a problem in 2 different aspects, and actually 3 different aspects. And is a fault line that lines with allopathic practitioners like me. Second fault line, and I'll explain each of the second fault line lies with Ayurvedic, naturopathic, and yogic practitioners like you guys. And the third fault lies with the third fault lies with the general philosophy and how it is practiced in India, and from India it comes to the US. And I don't blame the patient, because remember, patient, when you are sick, you're looking for a cure. So you cannot expect the patient to have the understanding of all these complexities. They want relief. So I'd never blame the patients for anything. If I was a patient today, I would be wanting cure immediately, despite being a doctor. So let's go one by one. So most allopathic doctors behave like horses. Why? They're horses. Let's look front. They are not supposed to look to any side. So they think the world exists, but the world starts with allopathy, ends with allopathy, which is a very nasty, very narrow view of the treatment paradigm. And it's not their fault either. It is a system fault, because we don't teach Ayurveda, we don't teach yoga, we don't teach research into holistic medicine in our medical schools here in the US. In India, they just started doing this. They have, I think, 80, if I'm not mistaken, 80 hours curriculum. But this is the beginning. But you have to do that in this country also. You have to understand that if you just take the bare economics. People spend $26 billion out of their pocket for yoga, naturopathy, and non-allopathic sciences. People are not willing to spend even 10 cents to buy a medicine. What does that mean? That clearly shows that people believe in these more than they believe in modern medicine. So the market is already there. You have to get into the market. So I talked about the Ayurvedic, the allopathic part, the problem with the allopathic doctors. The only way we can bridge it is, and there has been, and you guys as an organization can play a big role in it, along with many allopathic doctors also, that we need to have more open-minded discussion, because today there are hundreds and thousands of research papers on yoga. Yoga is no more a ritual, no more a religious nonsense or anything like that. It's a scientific way to behave yourself, to have diet, to have living. So we have tons of research. So this should come to the forefront, and there should be a distinct protocol that medical student in this country should be taught. So that is one. Second part is the fault with you guys. I think predominantly the fault is that you have to also remain updated with medicine, because you cannot say, okay, I am Ayurvedic, I am naturopathic, because the general medicine, biology, biochemistry, which are the fundamental points of modern medicine, those need to be strong, because you cannot, the biochemistry doesn't change of the patient whether he goes to allopathic doctor or a homeopathic doctor or a Ayurvedic doctor. So that is one part where you need to be strong, and I think be more aggressive, that because I think what you guys are doing are phenomenal apart. Today modern medicine is talking about personalized medicine. So where is the personalized medicine in allopathy? You come to me with blood pressure, I'll give you ACE inhibitor. Gauri comes to me with blood pressure, I'll give her ACE inhibitor. Where is the personalized medicine? There's no personalized medicine. It is all hoax. So the real personalized medicine comes in Ayurveda, comes in yoga. So you guys have to advertise that this is what exactly is personalized medicine, and not let your field being taken over by other people. Third is the general milieu. So in India, what we happen is we have a lot of these gurus talking a bunch of nonsense with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever. Now you might say Sri Ramakrishna didn't even go to school. But you have to understand that somebody like Sri Ramakrishna, who can go into samadhi in 1 second, he understands the functioning of the entire universe. So you don't need to go. Buddha doesn't need to have a formal knowledge, because there are two ways to know things. One is a formal knowledge. What do you mean by formal knowledge? You have a tree in your background, so you're a scientist. So you look at the root and then you find, oh, this leads to the trunk. Then you look at the trunk and say, oh, this leads to the branches. And then you understand the tree. That might take 200 years. Whereas a rishi or a muni in the strict sense of terms, not the guys flourishing in India having $200 million empire, and not those. So for them, so they, munis, rishis, they can see the entire universe in one go. And if you have any doubt about that, I'll give you one single example. In 1992, in one of his lectures, Swami Vivekananda said that this entire universe is connected to each other. And but of course, 10, 15, 20 years after that, Einstein came with his E is equal to mc squared, and he said, no, the fastest thing that can communicate between two things is the light. So to go to the nearest star, you need approximate century, you need 4.2 light years. But then when quantum physics came, Niels Bohr said, no, Einstein, you're wrong. And as you guys know, last year Einstein was proved wrong, because he got the 3 Nobel Prizes. Though Einstein was proved wrong almost 20 years back. The Nobel Prizes came last year. So, and this is what Vivekananda said. So imagine the power of a man who says these things. When he said it, people said it is philosophical. And we have a name for that. It was before called, in the 60s, 70s, it was called law of non-local connection. Now it is called quantum entanglement. So if you have an electron in your body and another electron at the other end of the universe entangled, they will know what one is doing with the other. You don't need, the light itself will take millions of years to go from this part of the universe to the other part of the universe. So that's why Einstein was wrong. So the whole universe is one. So that is the third problem, that we have to infuse. We are not Ramakrishna, we are not Adi Shankara, we are not Buddha, but so we have to have knowledge. And knowledge will bring in light where there is darkness. And of course, if you are practicing meditation, which everybody should, because that is the only way you can, it doesn't matter how much asanas you do, you can spend your whole day not earning, but doing asanas, that will not improve your hypertension. Because a lot of this is coming from the brain, and you have to change your brain. That's called neuroplasticity. 4 weeks of practice of meditation will completely change your brain, the neurotransmitters of the brain. So these are the 3 pillars I see where every one of us needs to work, irrespective of the field we are in, to make radical changes. And the radical changes is needed not for you, not for me, but for the common people who are suffering.
Very well said, sir. Thank you so much. You rightly said that when it comes to the personalization medication, the Western medicine somehow it does not come to that point. You integrate yoga into your practice. Is there any specific patient profile or condition where yoga is particularly effective as a complementary therapy when it comes to the personalization?
No, almost every NCD, see, NCD, that is the non-communicable diseases, kills 70% of the people every year. Out of the people dying in this planet, 70% from non-communicable disease. There's almost no non-communicable disease where yoga does not work. Certainly, the largest killer in the world is cardiovascular disease. It kills twice the number of people than the second largest killer, which is cancer. So every form of cardiovascular disease is treatable with personalized medicine using holistic medicine yoga. Every one of them, whether it is hypertension, whether it is diabetes, whether it is stroke, you name it, every one of the peripheral artery disease. So no, there's every one of them can be. And in fact, if we start doing it, you will see there's a fall not only in the cost of medicine. Today, as you know, America being one of the richest country, even America, it is expected that in 20 to 25 years, the American Medicare system will break down because we don't have enough money. Where we are spending millions, we spend $4 million to give a cardiac transplant. There are hundreds of people with the heart failure. So it's a huge, costly business. Same cardiac rehab. Starting a cardiac rehab costs millions because you need costly equipment. But if you can do this, there are a bunch of papers in world's top journals like Circulation showing that yoga, and that's what we work in. And that's where I would invite you guys to come in with us. Um, uh, that yoga, without spending a single pie, buying a $10 mat, you can get the same thing that you'll buy one of the Nautilus machines, spending $200,000 and get the same effect. Actually, you might get better effect because you can't get a guy having a myocardial infarction 4 weeks back, do a Nautilus or some of the other machines, but you could easily make him do certain forms of yoga. So the question is that there is hardly any, even in cancer, it does not, it plays a big role to decrease cancer, side effects of cancer, chemotherapy, psychological effect. So you might ask me, why is psychological effect important in cancer? There has been multiple studies on that if you are a cancer patient and if you are depressed, your chance of dying, and that's not only for cancer, even for heart disease, your chance of dying is much more, your chance of metastasis is much more than if you are a cancer patient who is not depressed. Same with heart attack. If you are heart attack and you have the same profile of another gentleman or a lady with a heart attack, but if you are depressed, your chance of dying is twice. And most forms of depression, mild to moderate forms of depression, can be completely cured with yoga. You don't need to be on medicines because medicines you'll have to take all your life. The day you stop medicine, you'll get depressed again. All that medicine does, it changes the chemical milieu of your brain, increases serotonin. So you can do that by yourself by practicing yoga. We know that there's tons of research on that now. And using functional MRIs and other latest techniques, we have got into human brain without cutting it open as we had to do 100 years back. And we know what exactly happens. So there isn't a field really in non-communicable diseases where you cannot make determinable changes in the life of the patient and his or her suffering.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basu. I completely agree with the psychological stress associated with the lifestyle disorders or any disease. And yoga does say, chit, the definition of yoga itself says yoga chit vritti nivrod, where it controls the mind. And it is, yoga is all about the physical and the mental strength. So I know we are a shortage of time because you have the other things also to take care. The last question for you is for our audience. Is there any resource or programs or collaborations with yoga instructor that you recommend to ensure that the patients practice it safely and effectively? Because there are so many facets of yoga nowadays that sometimes it is hard to find a right place where you can recommend to go.
Absolutely. And I think that's very, very important. Like I was hearing the A of Chan, that's very impressive. The problem is somebody does 3 weeks of yoga in some studio and then becomes a big yoga guru, and we need to stop that. So, as I said, this is a book we wrote for physicians, for yoga therapists. This brings the science of yoga. So, unless you're a trained Ayurved or when you give yoga after 3 weeks of training, not only is it a danger to you, but it's a severe danger to the patient. I'll give you one living example. This is a 65-year-old lady. She's very fit. She could even climb mountains. She lives in Dehradun. So somebody told her that I'll teach you yoga, then you'll be, even when you're 90, you'll be fitter. She comes to me after 1.5 years with severe heart failure. Then I find out that she had heart attacks before, and she was treated with some yoga techniques which should not be given. And now she has a cardiac ejection fraction of 20-25%. So it's extremely dangerous. So first of all, what we do is we have courses for yoga therapy people so that they know the science. If you get bend your neck and stay there for 1 hour, doesn't make you a yoga therapist. Uh, Yoga therapist is somebody who understands the science, who understands the physiology, and then understands the pathology, and then can prescribe medicines. And medicines means yoga here. I don't mean drugs. So just like any allopathic doctor or Ayurvedic doctor, you have to be clinically trained in the science. So we have courses for yoga therapists who can learn these. We have courses for doctors who are allopathic, Ayurvedics, where we teach the mental science, we teach the science behind it, we teach the science behind hypertension, why hypertension cannot be cured by just doing physical yoga or asanas. You have to have pranayama. Pranayama increases um, parasympathetic discharge, which decreases the sympathetic tone that you have. There are multiple breathing techniques that increases parasympathetic. For example, if you do right nasal breathing, will you increase your parasympathetic? No, you'll increase your sympathetic. You'll get more blood pressure. But somebody who has done 3 weeks of yoga in some studio, what do you expect her to know all these details? Absolutely not. So it is very important that if people are listening to me, you have to go to trained clinicians. Trained clinician does not mean always physicians. To me, Ayurveds are also physicians. You may have license to practice in this country or not, that is different. And there are many other reasons for that, not because your knowledge is less or anything, but you are physicians by training. So people like this should be teaching, and not any Tom, Dick, and Harry who has done some weekend courses and then becomes a great yoga teacher and minting money. I don't have problem with people mint money, but they are minting money at the cost of people's life, and that's inappropriate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basu. I know that you have to leave. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we are going to share all the relevant information regarding your courses with our audience today. And if they have any question, they can reach out to you directly. We will direct them to your website. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you, Dr. Shroff and Chandni, for patiently waiting and listening. The flow of the discussion changed today because Dr. Basu requested that he has to leave for his rounds by 9:30. So my next question is for Dr. Shroff now. I know that you more focus on the physiological and psychological process of the yoga. So can you please explain how breathing acts as a bridge between the body and mind, and how this connection can be utilized to control both physiological as well as psychological process, particularly when it comes to have the sleep issues? You are on mute, Dr. Shroff.
Yeah, Dr. Basure eloquently discussed the parts relating to the cardiovascular thing, and I particularly like this part where he talked about the non-communicable chronic diseases. You know, and everyone knows that 70% of the deaths occur worldwide, and the leading cause of this is, non-communicable diseases. And I think that yoga therapy and Ayurveda and everything will really help this. And one other thing that I'd like to kind of continue before I answer your question is that, cancer researchers are now trying to duplicate what cardiologists are doing in life-threatening conditions like cancer. So this is what it is. Of course, cancer is much slower and it's much more complex, but at the same time, I think we can follow almost the same process. And I think that a lot of people are doing this, including Dean Ornish. He's talking about doing this using the same model like we did for cardiovascular disease. Because until now, 90% of the efforts was spent on treatment, and only 10% is on prevention. And that needs to flip. So that's what I think that I just want to carry on that. Now, regarding your question about sleep, so on one side, like the body needs movement and the mind needs stillness, right? And the only thing in between is the breath. So the breath it soothes the nervous system also. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to down-regulate your sympathetic activity, which is the fight and flight. So if some animal is chasing you, obviously you need to be alert, and you need to be vigilant. And that's the fight and flight, or the freeze. If your boss is coming near you or your wife is coming or whatever happens, you want to be so that's the fight and flight. But the whole purpose of yoga is to upregulate your parasympathetic activity. So when you upregulate your parasympathetic activity, that is the rest and digest. So that is the important thing. It's the repair, it's the regeneration, it's the rejuvenation. All of these things take place in the parasympathetic. Now, of course, we need the fight and flight. We need the sympathetic activity to be alert for various reasons. But then you don't need to be constantly in that vigilant state. You need to chill out. You need to go back. And that is the important thing about the yoga. What we are trying to do is to use this thing as a relaxed breathing. In other words, so there are hundreds of asanas, there are hundreds of pranayam, but what to do when is the most important thing, right? So, for example, in the morning, if you need to be energized for whatever reason, then you can do Kapalbhati, Agnisar, you can do the bandhas, the Mahabandha, Dhyana Bandha, all of those things. They are good. And, I do Sudarshan Kriya also. But those are things, that is for a short time, and its purpose for is regeneration. But when you want to try to sleep, either in the afternoon if you're doing a power nap, or in the night, when you're trying to unwind and you want to sleep, we need to have a relaxation breathing. And that's my focus, So sleep is very important. We say anivarya, you have to have sleep. There's no question about it. Minimum, people need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Of course, children need more, and that all that is good. So my grandkids, if they cannot sleep, they don't want to sleep. They want to see movies, they want to do all kinds of things. But then you need to tell them that and they all want to play basketball, but they are vertically challenged. So we tell them, hey, listen, you want to play basketball? You need to sleep, because that's when your growth hormone comes, and you need to sleep in early part of the night. So, the deep sleep occurs in the first half of the night, when you sleep. So you need to sleep early, so that way, you can get your growth hormone. Of course, and adults, we need growth hormone too, for repair, regeneration, all those kind of things too. So it's not just for growing taller, you need other things also. So we kind of emphasize all of these kind of things for people, so that they they become cognizant of what they need. So on the relaxed breathing part, we talk about the simple types of things, that there is a thing called 4-7-8 breathing, right? So, you breathe in for a short time, like you're smelling a flower, right? Just breathe in, and then you hold your breath, and then you breathe out, that 4-7. And this is based, of course, on yoga things, but, Andrew Weil popularized this. And you said that, if you try to do this, and he's the professor of integrative medicine, and he's got a very strong background in yoga. So he tried to kind of bring this in, and I think it's important. Then the other thing is that there is a book called Oxygen Advantage. Patrick McKeown wrote this. And now more and more people are talking about it. And it was based on the Russian neurophysiologist and pulmonologist whose name is Buteyko. So he talked about breathe light is breathe right. So it's a light breathing. Normally, when we go for a yoga thing, and you say, you tell them to take a deep breath, they go like that, that's not the point. You need deep, meaning deep end of the swimming pool. It's like low breath. It's a low breath. It's a diaphragmatic breath. It's a belly breath. So your belly has to distend like a balloon, and you inflate and then deflate. That's the important thing. So we're talking about a low diaphragmatic breath, and it's always a nasal breath. So the importance of nasal breath, of course, was increased during the COVID, but even I think about 1980s, they talked more about this. They started talking about nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is toxic in the environment, but when it comes to the body, the nitric oxide is extremely important because this is one of the few gases. In fact, 3 people got a Nobel Prize, including Louis Ignarro, and he talked extensively about this with cardiovascular signaling. I think that Dr. Basure can probably talk a little bit more about that. But basically, it reduces your blood pressure, it reduces your heart rate, all of that stuff occurs with nitric oxide. And for that, you need to breathe through the nose. So when we talk about relaxation breathing to try to sleep, when you're trying to unwind, we talked about nasal breathing and abdominal breathing, and it's a light breathing. So breathe light to breathe right. So that's what we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I can go on for the whole thing. Basically, that's what we do. So then we do also box breathing. So in box breathing, it's nice, but see, like, for example, in yoga also, we talked about kumbhak, right? We are holding the breath. But see, if you talk about Anulom Vilom, you breathe and then you hold your breath. So you breathe as the Purak and then you stop the breathing, you hold your breath, and that is Antar Kumbhak. And then, of course, you breathe out and then you breathe in and again hold your breath. So that is again in Antar Kumbhak. But nowadays, with modern science, we're talking more about exhale hold. So that means, you breathe, you hold your breath, you breathe out, and try to increase your exhalation, at least double the inhalation, which is that puts you in the parasympathetic mode. We talk about upregulating your parasympathetic, and then you breathe. So you're breathing out, and you hold your breath. Now, when you breathe in, you're reabsorbing that nitric oxide. See, nitric oxide is a very short half-life. It's only like 1 or 2 seconds. That's it. Very short half-life. So when you do the exhale hold, the Baya Kumbhak, Rechak Kumbhak, when you do that, then you're rebreathing that, and you're rebreathing some carbon dioxide. So that is also important. See, the purpose of breathing is to bring in oxygen and to liberate carbon dioxide, right? But carbon dioxide is not an entirely waste gas, So that is the importance of that. I remember some time back, I was jogging in the park, and there was a guy who was hyperventilating. He was over-breathing. And he lost all the carbon. He's eliminated all his carbon dioxide, and he's over-breathing, and not nasal breathing, but he's mouth breathing, So that's more carbon dioxide out. So all I had to tell him is to shut your mouth. Tell him to close the mouth and then breathe through the nose and cool down. Just breathe a little bit and then breathe out. Just take it easy. And just within a few minutes, he got better. So I'm just trying to tell you that this is the important thing about just knowing a little bit of yoga and practicing this on day-to-day things, and try to relax, try to unwind, Yeah. And of course, one of the other things that I want to kind of touch upon is that it's not only your breathing part, but I try to do some yoga asanas also, some simple thing, that relaxation. So I don't do Surya Namaskar or something when I'm trying to sleep. I do that maybe earlier in the morning or whenever. But try to do some relaxation breathing and try to end up with child pose. That is important because you do the happy baby and then you go into child pose and you kind of relax in that thing. See, 80% of your lung is in the back and in the bottom part. Very little is in the top part. So that part, when you're in that child pose, Shishu Asana, Balasana, in that, and when you do the pursed lip breathing, that is the straw breathing, that means you breathe out and you breathe out through your nose, you whoosh it out. That helps you more than anything else, So we do all these little things, and then you kind of chill out and you can listen to some music or whatever if you haven't slept by that time. And that is what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shroff. I remember I was attending one of your talk, which was conducted by Dr. Usha Perry.
Yeah.
And in that, you were telling the right breathing for the sleep apnea. And in my practice also, and I'm sure many of us see a lot of patients or a lot of family members who have these days sleep apnea. Can you please elaborate a little bit about the sleep apnea and how breath work can be helpful when it comes to that condition?
Yeah, I'm sure glad that, this is something very important. So there are two things in the sleep. One is sleep disturbed breathing, SDB, and then there is obstructive sleep apnea, so that is OSA, obstructive sleep apnea. So when you talk about apnea, that means you're not breathing for at least 10 seconds, otherwise it's called hypopnea. So what happens is that people, especially older people, what happened, and it can occur in anybody, not just older people. But what happens is that they stop breathing because what happens is that they have mouth breathing, or even otherwise they're snoring because, the pharynx, the gut, the throat, that's not a rigid tube, it's a collapsible tube. So it could be even a tongue. So that's why more people, obese people also have this. So the tongue, the thick tongue falls on the pharynx, and and it compresses it. So then the air does not go through. And because of the turbulence created there and the vibrations, you get the snoring. Snoring is boring, especially for your sleeping partner. It's terrible. But the thing is that it's got a problem because, they're not breathing, then you can get obstructive sleep apnea. That can have severe consequences, So we are trying to tell them how to breathe. And, what you do during the daytime, that's what you're going to do in the nighttime too. And also during exercise, So what you will try to do is to breathe light during the daytime and just breathe through the nose. So try to breathe in and out completely through the nose. The only time I do breathe out through the mouth is like when I'm doing this pursed lip breathing or straw breathing, that type of thing, and that we use for asthma and a lot of other things also. But basically, that's what I try to do with the obstructive sleep apnea, because that is very important to kind of decrease this thing. Otherwise, when you get these apneic index problems, then, and some yoga exercises, when you try to unwind, and especially when we do these simple relaxation poses, these asanas, before you sleep, and then we try to tell them how to do this. That is a kind of thing.
Thank you so much. So my next question to you is, what is the role of intentional breathing practices, especially when it comes to boosting cognitive functions or managing emotions such as anxiety, anger, and how one can practice these practices into or integrate these practices into their daily routine to benefit overall mental wellness?
Yeah, so people are stressed during the daytime. It's your job, then it's a work-life balance, and just like life, you need to have good balance, work-life balance. And they're stressed and they're vigilant all the time. So they're in that sympathetic mode, and it's important to be, sympathetic is necessary for acute problems, but, after that, after that animal that was chasing you is gone, or after your boss is gone, your wife is gone, everything is, then you cool down, chill out, and then, you can get into the parasympathetic mode. So that is the important thing. So stress is, of course, where, you need to, it's this chronic stress that we're talking about, that is the whole day. And people have anxiety, depression, there's so many problems with that. So we need to try to decrease that kind of thing. And that's what I do intentionally. So one of the things is, Anulom Vilom, you can start with that, that's fine. Or if you're trying to sleep, you can do all that 4-7-8 breathing, that's fine. But the most important thing is the box breathing. We talked about the box breathing. So when you exhale, hold especially, and then you inhale, hold, you get the nitric oxide in this thing, that decreases the stress, that decreases your blood pressure, decreases your heart rate, and all of these things. And then you need to prolong your breathing. So, we do the Ujjayi breathing, Ujjayi meaning victory. So that victory is victory over your mind. So you need to slow down your breathing. So most people are over breathing and they're breathing 15 to 20 times a minute. So what the ideal number of breaths is 5 a minute. And many times, when you do the chanting, when you do the mantras, automatically it goes down to 5. Even when this thing, then the Hail Mary full of grace, when you do that, or you do your Gayatri mantra or whatever mantras you're doing, you need to get down and in that thing. So that is the important thing. So one of the things I do is I sleep with my Apple Watch, and I have this Aura Ring also. Okay. So then with my iPhone, I can check, and I'm trying to see what I know. I try to practice what I preach, So what I'm trying to do is to see in my own this thing, how much improvement there is. So I've got my thing for the last year for this Apple Watch, and I've been trying to see that, and I see how much. So in sleep, what happens is that there is two main parts, right? One is the rapid eye movement where your eye goes thing, and that's when you dream, that is the dreaming part. And that is mostly in the second half of the sleep. Whereas in the first half of the sleep, you have the non-rapid eye movement, So non-rapid eye movement has 4 stages. So 1 and 2 is slow. I mean, it's just like light breathing, and 3 and 4 is the deep breathing. So deep breathing is the theta wave, the delta wave. So this is correlated with your brain, that is the EEG, the electroencephalogram. So I wanted to see my thing. So the deep wave is called the slow breathing. The deep sleep is slow wave breathing, So, you can correlate that with your electrocardiogram. So besides this, my Aura Ring and my Apple Watch, I tried to do this part with I did a home sleep study. One of my friends is a sleep doctor. So I didn't want to go to his lab and do all that kind of stuff, of course, that's much more elaborate, but I just wanted to do it myself because I don't have an issue, but I just wanted to see. And I did that sleep wave study, and it's called a polysomnogram. And, you see all your things. So I could kind of correlate my brain activity with whatever I'm doing. And gradually, I'm seeing that, my just saying deep sleep waves increasing in the night, especially in the first half. And then I'm getting good rapid eye movement also. So that's it. And then of course, 1 and 2 is light sleep, so that is the core. So it's not important that, when you when you hit the pillow and, you go to sleep. I mean, that can happen if you're really tired and things like that. But mostly you need to kind of unwind and then kind of relax, chill out, and then try to sleep. If you do all those things, so I try not to watch the movies and all that. We do watch it, but I use the blue light elimination glasses, and my bedroom is completely dark and that type of thing. So those few things will help. And then, of course, I try to not drink coffee and all that kind of thing, late in the caffeine, probably because the half-life of caffeine is about 6 hours. So, you want to try to stop your tea and coffee, mostly by about 12 in the night, because, 12 in the afternoon, that type of simple things, we can do. So all of these things, it's even the small things that you do, they all can kind of put together and try to help you to sleep.
Thank you, Dr. Shroff. I know you are associated with YU also, Vivekananda University for the Yoga. So as a urologist and a cancer surgeon, do you incorporate breathing techniques into your clinical practice also when you are directing your patients towards the wellness? And is there any particular population or the different type of patients? For example, somebody is recovering from surgery, or you talked a little bit about the undergoing cancer patients, and Dr. Basu also touched based on that, who can get significantly benefits from these practices, especially the breathing practices.
So yeah, in the breathing practices, some of the other things that when we talked about the previous time, we stopped at Ujjayi breathing, but then there is Brahmari, right? And, because that is what happens is in Brahmari also, it increases if you do it properly, and, just I try to do Brahmari later in the evening, so that increases your nitric oxide. And there are studies that show that it increases the nitric oxide by 15 times. There is no medicine that increases the nitric oxide by that much, So just simple humming, chanting, when we sing the bhajans, we do all that. So all of those things kind of put together does help you to decrease. So what with the humming, it go again, the parasympathetic activity goes up. That is your rest and digest. So that kind of thing also we try to teach. Now, people with cancer, that is one of the killer diseases. I mean, that's what people talk about. These are killer diseases. So what you want to try to do is to try to decrease your stress in those kind of conditions. And also, if you're having radiotherapy or chemo, you need some of those side effects can be decreased. So, MD Anderson is doing a lot of studies on the yoga part, and one of the people with the Vivek Vayu has been associated with the MD Anderson, and they're doing some research there. So the sad part is, Medicare and most of the insurance, they pay for PT and they pay for OT, but they don't pay for YT, there's yoga therapists, So they need to that needs to have a change, Dean Ornish, he did some studies where he talked about cardiac rehabilitation. And when he did that, he has incorporated the yoga people also in that, and then when he did that, he kind of helps that because they do pay for that, now. I mean, they pay significantly, but it's a long program, and they're trying to do that now for other things also, and it's not that it only helps the cardiac people, it only helps respiratory or this thing, but it helps when you do these, it helps all your systems. It's just not, it helps to decrease your cancer risk, and if you did have cancer, some of the side effects are decreased. The cardiovascular helps, it helps you to sink kidneys, it helps your lungs, it helps you, all these systems, it will help. And it then, that's why you feel better also, that's the important thing. And then that will gradually reduce your stress. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And rightly said that yoga can be helpful, or the breath work can be helpful, or combination of both can be helpful in various disorders. I have seen many research studies where it comes to that yoga can also enhance the level of postural control and improve balance in Parkinson patients also.
Right.
So many studies are out there. So, and so many types of yogas are also there. So now my next question comes to Chandni, to you. What is the essence of yoga according to ancient text, and how it is different from the modern interpretation, especially when we see different type of yogas nowadays, comes to the bear yoga, dog yoga, and various other type of yoga, which is, we all know that it is not a true form of yoga.
Yes, thank you so much, Meenakshi, for inviting me today and listening to our esteemed guests this morning on the revolution of yoga and ultimately Ayurveda and medicine in our world, in our global community today. As a yoga practitioner and a teacher and an Ayurvedic practitioner, I've seen the evolution of yoga and Ayurveda and modern medicine and alternative medicine transpire through the world over the last 20 years. It's been almost as if a renaissance is happening globally for us in the sciences of data research, bioengineering, stem cell therapy, regenerative medicine, yoga, and all the other orientations of wellness in our society. One of the most emphatic experiences of classical yoga is that it embodies very important aspects of human consciousness and human life. And in yoga, the classical rendition of yoga really breaks it up through the Upanishads and the Vedas and Patanjali's 8 limbs to orient yoga as either karma yoga or, bhakti yoga or jnana yoga or raja yoga, which is the entirety of the 8 limbs of yoga, and to have devotion, to have knowledge, to have selfless service. These are all aspects of our humanity that translate into almost a cellular scientific foundational level also. So to understand the classical traditions of yoga and then to facilitate them, as our esteemed doctors were saying, to create a layman understanding, to an adoption into mass society is sort of the Achilles heel, I should say, of us as practitioners and physicians and professionals in the industry. So yes, 5,000 years ago, the rishis and the sages and the enlightened ones, the knowledgeable ones came together, collectively through the cosmology of Ayurveda and tried to bring society and heal society as best they could through their meditations, through their research, through their very rebellious and disruptive techniques, through yoga, through medicine. But today we have to have an accountability and we have to break down a sophistication of our yoga therapeutics so that they translate and relate to a wider audience. And so that is our challenge, and that is our work, is not to discount classical yoga. And Patanjali says yogas chitta vritti nirodha, right? To ultimately, yoga is to stop or cease the fluctuations of the mind. And really that's what we're contending with in the world. If we can somehow tame this wild beast here, which the neurogenesis and the neurodegenerative aspects of the brain, I feel ultimately translate to either the wellness or the illness of the planet. So in yoga, we like to always say, oh, the monkey mind, it doesn't matter, leave it alone. But actually, ahamkara, the ego, the mind, the manas, like we really need to focus on the entirety of the system in an integrative practice, in a universal understanding, in a universal adoption and accessibility, to bring this classical science of yoga and all that it entails to be able to really help the mind on a global level to reach systems where we can all practice wellness individually and thus, as a result, collectively uplift the planet and each other. Hopefully that was a very loaded question, and I tried to encompass it in a small amount of time.
Thank you, Chandni. So I know that you own one of the largest yoga studio in the United States. So tell me, what impact has the commercialization of yoga had it on traditional values and practices? Since we see that the yoga has become a kind of like a business entity these days.
Yes, the commercialization of any system or tradition or business or idea is unfortunately or fortunately a byproduct of who we are as human beings. So when it comes to the commercialization of yoga, I've seen over the last 20 years, it's been quite comical. I think there was even a time where I witnessed that people were drinking and doing the yoga poses at the same time. It was like beer and yoga. I mean, really became a circus. I think it's sort of calmed down a bit. It's become much more oriented towards physicality and or spirituality. So it's moved into those two different sorts of pockets right now. But it did go through a period where it was very disturbing to see that they were utilizing a modality that was so ancient and so sacred and so medically renowned through our history to be reduced to something very oops, can you see me?
Yes.
Chris? Oh,
we can see you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. To something that was anything other than what yoga really needs to be in the world, which is a practice that is alluding and directing people towards an overall sense of wellness and sense of identity. So I think that we're living in a time now where, we have to understand that we cannot practice yoga like we practice yoga in India. And we cannot reduce yoga to become disenfranchised towards, an idea of something that it's not just to make money, but we have to bring yoga into our medical system, our school system, our social systems, where each individual finds accessibility to it on their own. And I think we're doing a good job of that. I think when you look at the landscape of, the yoga studios that used to be very prevalent, that I was lucky enough to be a part of, where we really did have Sangha, we had community, we had, amazing yoga teachers coming from India and all different parts of the world to teach us, to be with us. We would travel to India and deepen our own practice. But I think we're coming to a place now where everything is a lot more digital, accessible. There are yoga practices and yoga certifications around the world that are accessible to many people. And as you guys know, in order to master something, you should teach it. And so I think that, the accessibility of yoga for a mass market is better than it's ever been today.
So, Chandi, I understand that with the commercialization of yoga, sometimes it is hard to the practice the way it should be. But as a yoga therapist yourself, what steps you can suggest for a practitioner or teachers to take to preserve the integrity and depth of yoga as it is continuously evolving these days?
Yeah, so, I think that one of the challenges of yoga is that I think one of our esteemed doctors was suggesting that yoga is not just about getting on a mat and stretching and breathing. It's so much more than that. And I think education is so important. And that's where the crossroads of Ayurveda merges into the practice of asana and yoga and the 8 limbs of yoga, the yamas, the niyamas, the rest of them. I think that we have to create systems and businesses and environments where the cornerstone of Ayurveda, which is actually the heart of yoga, which is dinacharya, daily lifestyle practice in accordance and alignment with the cycles and seasons of nature, move into a daily practice that is cultivated to the individual. And I think that on the outside, it seems it's a huge task to uplift each human being in the world to address their lifestyle practices in harmony and in accordance with their own constitution, with the cycles and the rhythms of nature. But I do feel that through, bioengineering and biohacking modalities that are so prevalent in today's world, I really do think we are the proteges of Charaka. And I think that the rebellious nature of Ayurveda, classical Ayurveda, is actually taking hold today. I think there are so many different factions of the medical industry and scientific industry and wellness industry and alternative medicine industry that are coming together head to head. And we're creating, we're able to have neurogenesis now. This is a recent understanding that we're able at any age to build, generate new brain cells. And so neuroscientists like Andrew Huberman and these contemporary sort of, influencers in the medical and scientific industries are infiltrating into the yoga and alternative medical industries, and they're reaching a mass audience. So I think that we shouldn't be so worried about holding on to the classics, because I think, history will hold on to what it needs to hold on to. And we need to have more trust in standing on the shoulders of our giants of our past through all traditions, and cultivating and creating new systems that are effective, that are allowed, like sleep. Sleep is a massive understanding in our society today that it's never been. People have Oura rings and data, and they can understand why it's important and how, their REM sleep is important, how the hours of the days are important. These are all Ayurvedic principles that are now translated into modern language. And I think Ayurveda is actually taking course in our global community like it never has before. And yoga systematically, as a sister science to Ayurveda, is also evolving in the same token. So to answer your question, I don't think we should be so worried. I think each one of us as professionals needs to focus on the small thing we can contribute. And if we have enough trust and we have discipline in our own ability to evolve and change and heal, and then bring that to our respective communities, I think we're in good shape.
Thank you, Chandni. And I completely agree that it is not only about the physical posture side of the yoga. And we all have our responsibility towards all the traditional sciences where we can get educated and have the more knowledge and direct other people also to get that knowledge. When we talk about the yoga is not only the physical posture, can you elaborate on the the philosophical underpinning of yoga and how they are integral to the practice beyond the physical postures?
Okay, so this is you know, I'm not Indian, I'm Persian by heritage, I'm Parsi. So my background is a bit different, and I was raised in Europe. I was born in England. And so I consider myself a Geo-Zen. You know, I'm sort of like a product of many different cultures of the world, which I hope this becomes more of an identity for us as a global community moving forward, which it seems it is becoming. I feel that, you know, having the classical Ayurvedic traditions and yoga traditions of this union with the divine, or the ability to transcend the three-dimensional phenomenal reality of this Mayan illusion that we understand to be in many different faiths. I feel that moving into giving people, when it comes to yoga especially, the privacy to their own understanding of their spiritual practice is key. Because a lot of the times, you know, when it comes to religion or politics, it's a very loaded gun, and it creates a lot of turmoil, and it inhibits us from joining together and individually growing together. So if we can create a more agnostic interpretation and practice of yoga without losing its integrity, I think that is the solution to allowing yoga to move into a more collective adoption. I think what's prohibiting yoga and even Ayurveda from really becoming accessible on a system basis, you know, in the world, is that this idea of its connection to transcend, to Purusha, or, you know, Atman with Brahma, this idea of moving into union with God is actually the singular reason that is preventing this science-based universal understanding of our cellular and, you know, esoteric humanity to forge alliances and really evolve. And if you can see in our geopolitics, you know, religion is still just creating so much horror in our world. It is preventing us from truly becoming the unified brothers and sisters, which the Vedas have told us from day one. Whether they're misinterpreted by, you know, others or not is regardless. But I think we need to translate a universal understanding of the Vedas, of the Upanishads, of the 8 limbs of yoga, and modernize them and create a vocabulary that doesn't alienate anyone who has perhaps a different idea of religion or faith or belief. So I think that really is the only thing, Meenakshi, that is preventing this great science of yoga that is good for everyone, that makes sense to everyone. It's innate, it's inborn within us, you know, our breath, to know how to breathe, to have in Zoroastrian faith, we have 3 pillars: Guftara neek, Kirdara neek, Pindara neek. Good thought, good speak, good action. This is basically Ayurveda. It's the Upanishads, it's the Gita. It's those 3 things. It's simple. And it's not just for us, for Parsis or for Indians. It's universal in all faiths, in all religions. So allowing to respect the privacy of an individual's faith with the divine, or lack thereof. We should also, free will. There are people that don't want to address the divinity. That is their prerogative, right? We are not here to dictate to them, but coming up with a collective understanding of respect and a vocabulary that adheres relatability through our yoga practices, through our Ayurvedic practices, through our medical practices, to create cohesion and relation and connectivity with our patients, with our audience, with our community, with our society. That is, I think, our work first and foremost. And thankfully, it's data-driven. We have AI. We have more sophisticated ways of proof and evidence. So I think, I like to be an optimist, and I like to be inclusive and never exclude anything or anyone, because if it exists, it's relevant. And so we need to address it and see it. And through that, come up with solutions that are intelligent and accessible.
Thank you so much. So in a nutshell, we can say that the yoga has fostered a sense of global unity and the culture exchange. That's the message I receive from you when it comes to yoga. Yeah. So you spoke about a little bit about the neurogenesis also, Chandni. My question to Dr. Shroff and to you also. First, Dr. Shroff, there is a concept of neuroplasticity and the neurogenesis. And when it comes to the traumatic brain injury, because that is kind of close to my heart, this topic, how the yoga can be helpful, especially when in the traumatic brain injury, the person is in coma. You are on mute, Dr. Shroff.
Yeah, so there are several aspects of this. I mean, you can take it from so many different angles, but traumatic brain injury, of course, most commonly occurs with concussion, right? So, people who play football, so that's why, although my kids wanted to play football, I just kind of and whatever, friends and all, we talk to them, because, that impact is quite big. And it's not only in the American football thing, but even with soccer, we used to play soccer, and we used to, I mean, things we did growing up. I mean, it's unbelievable that we can even function now. But, we used to hit the ball all the time, and you get injuries of the head. And of course, now people are talking. So there is a special branch of neurologists that primarily deal with concussion and head injury and all that, So, and many of them, of course, besides that, there is the problem of PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder. So that doesn't necessarily, that post-traumatic stress disorder usually comes from people going to Iraq, Afghanistan, and nowadays, Vietnam, So when I came back, I got off the boat. I came here in 1971, and we had a lot of people coming from Vietnam. And at that time, PTSD treatment was not that prevalent. I mean, people know about it. And there were other issues also with that PTSD thing. So, but we did treat the people for emotional things, the stress part. So, of course, yoga can come in. Yoga was not popular then as a treatment modality, and or a prevention modality. But they did talk about the physical, mental, and emotional aspect and how they can bring that together, with that. So in a different way, apart from yoga. But now I think with yoga coming into the picture, we really can bring all these modalities together. So that's why they can treat. In fact, with Sudarshan Kriya, they talk about, they have done some studies, some recent studies, where they can decrease the amount of PTSD with Sudarshan Kriya. So, it's only about 12 to 15 minutes of this thing every day. And once a week, there's a long Kriya, and so that also helps to do this thing. So they do help. And there are several other types. This is not the only one. But I think that mostly the relaxed breathing before sleeping, that kind of things help much more in that. And there are a host of other neurological diseases that can be treated with just yoga, Ayurveda and these things, the chronic diseases I'm talking about. Have we talked about the non-communicable diseases? I mean, that's a big portion, 70% of people have non-communicable disease. So that's where I think the yoga, the fundamental principles that encompass the universal connectedness and all that can bring there. So they say that, exercise is king and diet is queen, and together they form a kingdom. But in that kingdom, you need sleep, you need healthy relationship, and a host of other things, that thing. But these are the four main pillars, so we need to kind of bring all of that thing together when we are talking about this type of treatment, yeah.
Yeah, and it aligns with Ayurveda also. In Ayurveda, we say that there are three pillars of life, which is Ahar, Nidra, Brahmacharya. Ahar means the diet, Nidra means sleep, and Brahmacharya, control use of senses. And here we are talking in conjunction with yoga that all these three implement and we can get the wellness. Chandni, your thoughts on the neurogenesis?
Well, it's, as far as pranayama is concerned, we could ultimately address any chronic condition or emotional imbalance with pranayama. We know the extensive research and science and evidence of what pranayama can do. They say a man who can control his breath controls his destiny. So, I mean, that is such a loaded line, and it ultimately is truth. How do we, again, bring adoption to the practice of yoga and pranayama to a wider audience? That's the question. And how does that translate into holistic healing, including neurogenesis? Again, it's like what Dr. Shroff was saying, it's not a one-sided solution. It's an integrative practice. It's an integrative solution. And so one aspect of yoga and pranayama can help in neurogenesis or neuroplasticity, but there's a whole other, menu of individual daily lifestyle practices that need to be, utilized by the practitioner or the patient or, the community at large. So I think it's a question of information and education available and accessible across all platforms as much as possible, not just when we're sitting in a doctor's office or with an Ayurvedic practitioner or in a yoga class or in a restaurant of the food that we're eating, but to have technology and community and society really become a vessel of education. I think that we're seeing that a lot more now. With, even just buying products, there's so much more education around the ingredients and why we're putting certain foods in our body and what those things can do for us. So we're becoming much more jnani driven in the world, actually. I think that in the past, if you look, karma yoga was much more prevalent as a societal system, but really moving into Advaita in our society at large. Advaita is really helming the Aquarian age, the age of knowledge, the age of understanding. We're moving from the Piscean age of the age of faith. And, we really are moving into the age of Aquarius, and to knowing has become the nectar, has become the source, the evidence of bringing us together collectively through our consciousness and through our identity as human beings with Mother Gaia, with the earth. So I hope that addresses the answer to your question.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Wonderfully said that. Thank you so much for joining us. And I would like to invite Dr. Amit, our president for AAP, to tell us a little bit more about AAP before we start taking the questions from the audience.
Can I?
Yes, Dr.
Excuse me for one second. So one of the things I wanted to mention is, so basically, your question was about neurogenesis, right? So neurogenesis is the formation of new neurons in the brain. Of course, people did not know about neuroplasticity. They said that, your brain stops at a certain age, a young age. But now we know about neuroplasticity. New brains do form. And this neurogenesis is where the new neurons are formed in the brain, and this primarily occurs in the hippocampus. So that's why I want to mention that. And this plays a key role in learning, memory, cognitive flexibility. So this is what we are talking about, So I just wanted to kind of mention that part, I meant to say that.
I just want to add one other thing. Thank you for saying that. I did get sidetracked. It's all about regenerative chemistry happening in the system at any age, right? And so when we can effectively increase the ATP in our body through the regenerative aspect of increasing stem cells and mitochondria function in the body, though that's the crux. If we can focus on how to feed the intelligence centers of the body, which is what data science, bioengineering, AI is focused on right now, even with this whole idea of, the quantum entanglement. I mean, we are really in a renaissance in medicine right now, where the idea of curing cancer, when we can cure cancer, we're able to move into Rasiana. We're able to extend our life maybe 500 years plus. So it's all around mitochondrial function, stem cell therapy. I mean, I know you're nodding your head no, but I think we're living in a very interesting time where we're going to see a lot of changes happening in the aspects of the brain and life cycles of human beings.
So rejuvenating therapies are there, but I don't think so. The aging is inevitable. We cannot stop aging, and
not if you have nanotechnology move into this biology and we become half man and half machine, which can happen. I mean, I don't know if morally, it's not a question of morality. It's a question of where technology and humanity is moving, and we cannot change the course of that.
Yes, that is so true. And Dr. Shroff, you very well explained the part of the neurogenesis. I actually came across many studies where neurogenesis can happen, especially in terms of when it comes to the Alzheimer's, dementia patients, with the right type of breath work and the yoga. And one of the study I came across in the UCLA, where they have done, I think it was not a double-blind study, and that study helped in understanding of how the breath work can help with the neuroplasticity or neurogenesis. Thank you so much. And we have few questions, but before that, Dr. Amit, can you please let us know, our audience, what AARP is and how we are helping the community to spread the right knowledge about Ayurveda?
Thank you so much, Vaidya Meenakshi and Dr. Gauri, Dr. Deepa Bhatt, our team of AARP. AARP is us is all of us. It's the unity, the yoga of the science of and the wisdom of healing. So that's what AARP is all about. So it has 4 pillars. The first pillar is the pillar of unity, is the pillar of yoga or union of all the practitioners, physicians of Ayurveda to advance the authentic Ayurvedic medicine on basis of highest standards of healthcare, clinical training, and research. It's to collaborate. So we want to collaborate with all the national and global Ayurvedic and allied organizations and the institutions to spread the wisdom of healing of authentic Ayurvedic medicine. We also want to empower and help our Ayurvedic practitioners with the BMS, MD Ayurveda, PhD Ayurveda with about 8,000 hours of training. So bring them all together, and also to empower and educate the continuing education of AARP. That's why we have the Sambasha going on, is to help and educate and spread the wisdom of Ayurveda with the continuing education to the Ayurvedic members and yoga members. And it's basically also to build the gap, the bridge between commercialization and professionalism. I think that's the key of any practice, is to have a good balance of the philosophy, the practice, and also structure, because anything needs to be structured. Like, you see a lot of poor artists, they're accomplished artists, but they do not have that professional or that structure. So I think that's what we want to do even with the Vaidyas and practitioners of yoga and Ayurveda, is to bring in that professionalism. So thank you so much. And please do take advantage of joining up. We are still offering free membership till the end of this year. And we would be having many more events coming up. So we really like to invite you guys to be a part of AAP and be us. And thank you so much. Thanks to all audience for being here. And thank you, Meenakshi, for a wonderful moderation of this event. It was amazing, enlightening. Great job done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So before we let go our panelists, I have few questions which is coming from our audience. Basic questions any of you can take. What is the best time to practice yoga, and is there any age restriction for the yoga, or is there any condition where one should not practice yoga? Dr. Shroff, and then then
So first of all, any time is better than no time. Okay. So you do need to practice yoga, and it depends upon your schedule, So I do some for my own self. I want to kind of put it in perspective. So I do the energizing asanas, Surya Namaskar, whatever, in the mornings, and also the breathing part, the Kapalbhati, Agnisar, and the bandhas. Try to do those things in the morning. Some mornings are more the same. And then, just yoga alone, I believe, has a lot of benefits, but the thing is, it does not improve the strength. So as a person grows older, for example, there is a condition called sarcopenia, where the muscle mass decreases. In fact, anyone, as you go older, beyond 40, about 3 to 7% of your muscle mass decreases. So you need to kind of complement your yoga with some weightlifting or some resistance pulling or some other things, So for my own thing, I play a lot of racquetball and things. So that part with, they go to the gym and then I swim, So all of those things together come nicely out, So you need to get all of this. Otherwise, you're not doing that thing properly. And I don't think that there is any age limit for yoga because, of course, talking about asanas, you can do this, very easily. There is not a big deal about doing it, I've been doing yoga since my medical school days, on and off and whatever. And I still do, like Sirsasana every single day, and I do handstand and whatever else. So those are things that, you can do that because it helps you to these inversion positions and all that. In fact, Sirsasana is called the king of asanas. And people, just because they got their neck injured or something, they're not doing it properly. But now with modern day, there are so many other ways to do it. For example, I have a thing called yoga trapeze. I just hang down. So my neck is completely free. So I'm not straining my neck at all, or I can use a prop. There is a thing, or you can put two chairs together and then flip over. So those are the, or do a handstand, So those things, and the neck is not involved. The problem with this thing is that if the neck gets involved, then they do what happens is they do the shoulder stand. And that is even worse because the shoulder stand can cause problems in your neck, not only neck pain, but it can cause problem with your carotid artery and your vertebral artery. And people have had a stroke because see, what happens is your artery, your vein is kinked, and what happens, your blood vessels are kinked. So there's clot formation, and then that can predispose to stroke. So we need to know all these things. And when you teach yoga, we try to tell them all these kind of things, Of course, the standard thing is that, you don't want to do some energizing yoga poses and all that, or even the Kapalbhati breathing and all that, at least 2 to 3 hours after food, So if you're trying to eat something, So normally I do the 16-hour fast, so I don't eat a breakfast, but I eat just lunch and dinner. And then at least 1 or 2 days a week, I do a 24-hour fast. That is supposed to be good for senescence and a whole bunch of, that's another topic by itself. But basically I do that. So I can do yoga in the mornings just about any time. And the days when I do a 24-hour fast, it's not a problem because, I just do it the whole day. Whenever I can do it, I do it, So that type of thing, yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shroff. Just a quick question for you again. For a person who have never practiced yoga, what they can do to initiate the practice of yoga, where should they begin without hurting themselves? Because yes, it is very important to follow the guidelines or do the yoga practice with that properly trained yoga therapist. But how they can start?
So yeah, so nowadays, with there's so many YouTube and there's so much of stuff on YouTube, but not all of it is correct because sometimes when I look at YouTube, I told that they are teaching something wrong. So I normally play racquetball, then I go to the gym and swim. So but when I go to the gym, I see people doing the wrong thing. For example, so when you do when they do the weightlifting, instead of bringing the barbell, for example, in front of you, they're taking it behind. That is not good because you can get shoulder injury and things like that. When they're doing these weightlifting, they're keeping this thing too close, and that can cause shoulder impingement. So just a little knowledge, they need to keep a wider grip. Or if you already have a shoulder problem like rotator cuff or a frozen shoulder or some problems, shoulder impingement, then you need to kind of avoid that kind of stuff. So these are some simple things, and how to do a dead weight lift also, how you use your back, how you squat. Some knowledge is important. Any trainer can do that, or just watch. I mean, basically, I never had a trainer for weightlifting and all that. I mean, I've had friends, and some of my friends are orthopedic surgeons or spine surgeons, so I learn from them as we go along. But basically, it's just observation, and that type of thing. And the other thing is they need to warm up. So what happens is that there are several different types of stretching also that you do. You need to do the stretching before and after also. Most people do at least 5 to 7 minutes of good stretching. And besides the static stretching, there is dynamic stretching. For example, when I do the swimming, I do this kind of thing going back like this, and you're twisting your body. You're just like when you swim, you're not just swimming like this, you're twisting your body and going. That's how you cut through water, right? So you need to go like that. You need to do that for a few minutes. And then if you're doing breaststroke, primarily you go there. Or if you're doing butterfly like Michael Phelps, you go down, press, and then jump up, So you do some of these things. Now, when I play racquetball, I do some of those poses. So those are dynamic poses. The other thing is when they start the yoga thing, they need to have a good idea about the posture. Posture is extremely important, because what happens is that most of us spend so much time sitting in front of the computer, the desk thing, and they are slouched. So when they are slouched, what happens is you can't even breathe properly. They say that at least more than 30% of your lung capacity is decreased. So that's why the slouching is not good. And then people drive long distances. I mean, so there's again slouch, And then, sitting, if they sit on a sofa, I never sit on a sofa. I just sit on a chair or I'm standing. They say sitting is the new smoking. So that, you want to decrease your sitting time. I have a stand-up desk. I do everything just standing, except some small times you're sitting. That's fine, but even otherwise, I try to kind of do that because when you're sitting on the sofa, you're slouched. That you need to sit properly. You need to do that. Then that way you can get a good posture. And then there are some yoga exercises. For example, the skanda, where you do this and your this elbow is pointed to the ceiling, and then you're coming back. So this is good. I mean, you do this, but then just because in yoga you say you need to do the opposite movement, then they teach them this part. That's not good because you're already slouched like this, your shoulders are shrugged, you're like this. What's the point of doing this one? You need to do the outside part so you're opened up, and then you need to open up your shoulders. So these are some small little things that we teach them. But sometimes, just because we told them, okay, now when you bend, you stimulate your wiggle, you keep on bending like this, and then you do the opposite side. That's fine. Because there you can do that. But then when you do that, you do the forward and then always synchronize with your breathing. So like, for example, when you're going back, you breathe in, then you breathe out when you're flexing, and you do that during Surya Namaskar also, so the breathe in, breathe out. So that is important. When you're bending sideways, you breathe out when you're going in. So you breathe in and then breathe out. So that kind of thing, that there's a kind of a little rhythm there, with the and synchronize with your breathing. That is the important thing. That's the message we all normally give people,
Thank you so much, Dr. Shroff. That was a wonderful message. And I'm sure our audience who are not even present right now, later also they can watch on our YouTube channel also. Looking at the time, we are just 7 minutes over the time. So I'll invite Dr. Gauri Junarkar to say a vote of thanks for everybody.
So thank you so much, Vidya Meenakshi. And I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists, Dr. Indranil Basure, Dr. Nick Shroff, and Chandini Migliano for joining us today and sharing some wonderful wisdom of pearls of wisdom, and talking a lot about yoga and sharing that knowledge with all our audience today. And on behalf of AAP, I would like to thank all our panelists. I would also like to thank our president, Dr. Amit Guman, for being here. I would like to thank our Vice President, Vidya Meenakshi Gupta. I would like to thank our Secretary as well, Vidya Deepa Bhatt, for being here and supporting us as well. And also would like to remind all our audience as well to make sure that to look at our membership and join us so that we are able to bring all these wonderful events for you as well. So again, on behalf of all of us, thanking all of our panelists and thanking all our audience and participants for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.